I was wrong about Ashes of Creation, and in this video I want to explain why, as well as help explain what this game actually is and whether or not you might want to pick it up in the future. But first, like many gamers, I had my own doubts about Ashes of Creation previously. I thought this game was a simple cash grab, a way for a small group of developers to make some money off the backs of gamers who were dissatisfied with the current state of MMOs on the market and were also looking for a return to a more nostalgic MMO experience with games like World of Warcraft or even going back to EverQuest. I think there's probably a larger market in this space than the players and even game developers realize, and for a variety of reasons. For example, many MMOs nowadays are filled with microtransactions and pay-to-win mechanics that players are frankly getting tired of. And lots of games in the MMO space nowadays are just way too easy and don't provide players with any significant challenge or sense of accomplishment. Instead, everything is given to players typically right up front or very easily with minimal effort required. It's just sort of how things are done in today's gaming landscape. But it's for these reasons that I think any new MMO that moves away from those modern MMO traits and takes a more classic or quote hardcore approach definitely has the potential to find a very dedicated audience who wants something different. And that's where I thought Ashes could be just a brilliant marketing scheme in itself. I mean, to be fair, the game is not finished and it's charging hundreds of dollars for early access to an alpha, which of course is not a full game. I mean, it's not even close. But with everything that Ashes of Creation has promised, and it's a lot, I wanted to understand the experience for myself. So I decided to bite the bullet and also purchase alpha access because, like many, I am a huge fan of that classic MMO experience, and nothing really now in this current environment of online games has really matched it. So where did I land after my own testing? Well, after close to 30 hours playing the game over the past month or so, I think I can safely say that I was wrong about Ashes of Creation and that even in this very early playtest, there's a lot to look forward to in this game and it's looking better each and every patch. Now keep in mind this is not a sponsored video. I don't think Intrepid Studios has any idea of who I am, nor do they care. I just wanted to get my own hands on the game so I could start to form my own opinion. I'm a fan of classic MMOs and I have a YouTube channel, so there you go. But I want to start by talking about difficulty and why I think the difficulty factor in Ashes of Creation is one of its best features, and it's going to be what's going to help set it apart from other MMOs on the market. Now to begin with, combat in Ashes of Creation right now is pretty brutal. I mean, an enemy which is your same level in this game can actually kill you in 2 to 3 hits pretty easily, depending on the enemy type. I mean, they do it in different ways. Archers, for example, have huge charged bow attacks that they can land on you, potentially one-shotting you. Then there's pyromancers who throw bombs and explosions. And then there's fighter-style mobs that have chunky greatsword combos, which happen so fast that suddenly you're at half health and then 3 seconds later you're dead. And this, by the way, is your experience in-game starting at like level 5, once you get away from the baby goblins in the starting area. So you feel the impact of that difficulty almost right away in Ashes of Creation, and it's actually pretty shocking compared to more other recent games, and especially most current MMOs on the market, where you can typically just go AFK against a basic overland enemy and be completely fine. You know, your auto attack will probably finish them off in a handful of hits, and your health is going to regenerate back to full in a few seconds, but not so in Ashes of Creation. So basically, enemy damage in this game is tuned all the way up to max. And now this does a couple things for gameplay. Number one, it's going to encourage grouping, and especially grouping with a tank, because the tank archetype in Ashes is extremely durable and has many different ways of mitigating that insane damage output that even basic enemies can do. Now, you don't have to group up, though Ashes of Creation does encourage that, but you can definitely solo with the right skills and the right classes as well. And number two, that extra damage that enemies have just tends to slow the game down, and it makes it feel more slow-paced and methodical. Now, like I said, you can solo in the game as well, especially on classes that have good healing, like the Cleric, which is what I chose, but you have to be prepared. For example, you'll need to learn where your enemy spawns are, so you only pull one at a time. You have to bring the right gear, and especially the right consumables, because your health and your mana regenerate extremely slowly as well. And after a few fights, you may even just need to wait and rest to recharge your health or for your mana to be in a usable state again. I'm not just talking about, fighting a boss. I'm talking about fighting normal basic enemies in the overland zones who are the same level as you. Now, don't even think about soloing an enemy that's 2 to 3 levels above you, or an elite mob, because that's basically instant suicide in Ashes of Creation. But what I found is that every kill, at least in this early game, feels earned, and that's something that I haven't really felt playing an MMO in a long time, and it's actually a good feeling that I really enjoyed during my few dozen hours with this game. Now, that same feeling of having to actually work for what you've earned is extended into leveling and the gearing up process for your character in this game as well. Leveling in Ashes of Creation is very slow. I mean, playing solo, it might take 3 to 4 hours to earn a full level up in terms of experience gained, which is, slow compared to most modern MMOs where you can level up once in, a few minutes? Now, yes, the game does encourage grouping, as I said, to help level up faster, but even with a good group, gaining, one level can take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. So the leveling curve in this game is just so much longer when compared to other MMOs out there now, and honestly, this is not a bad thing, in my opinion. Now, this feels like that more classic MMO approach where you didn't have, the dings and the skill ups going off every few minutes, telling you that you leveled up, or you skilled up, or you got some sort of new equipment drop. The dopamine hits in those classic games were far fewer and more widely spread out, but they also had more impact, and it felt more substantial because you did have to work harder to get them, to get any progress. So Ashes of Creation does have this slower, almost nostalgic pace of progression, and it really nails that vibe. Some of you may have even never played a game like this. It's a different experience, but it quickly grows on you, and it becomes just as addicting, I think, as any other MMO that's currently on the market. Now, yes, there are plenty of frustrations in Ashes of Creation right now, which I'll mention in a bit, but because it's still in early alpha testing, there's really no pressure, to get ahead of the crowd, and I just found myself enjoying the grind and exploring this game. Now, in terms of player progression, as you'd expect, your class does become more powerful over time as you level up due to the different skills and abilities you can unlock through various skill trees, but again, the time to power differential here is more long-term than short-term. For example, on my cleric, I felt very weak for the first 10 levels or so, basically like the first 10 hours. I mean, yes, I could heal, so I could definitely jump into groups and be useful there, but for soloing enemies in the world, I just didn't do enough damage on my own, and I didn't have enough defensive skills. But eventually, around like the 10 to 12 hour mark, I had unlocked a few more skills that did damage and actually healed me at the same time, so there was this progression that started to happen where at first I was a basic healer to now where I could almost play like a paladin-style warrior, and now my build was really starting to cook. I mean, literally, because I was roasting enemies with holy fire and also had passive and delayed healing options. But like I said, it did take me a while to get there, and I'm still only halfway through the starting skill tree, with more skills still to be added to the game after that. But the slower pace and that prolonged progression in Ashes of Creation also extends into the gear economy as well. Overall, I'd say itemization, even at this early stage in the game, is pretty good. There are some very powerful items you can get. There are unique drops from, named enemies and more challenging bosses, but those drops are rare. And because of that, they do feel more meaningful and impactful because the game isn't just raining down item set drops on you or giving you tons of rares and legendaries every few minutes. What I found is you're basically lucky to get 1 or 2 good drops per hour. So again, that just means that everything you get feels more meaningful and impactful, and you just might, change your build like I did because I got a really good two-handed weapon early on, so I was kind of able to change my healer build into a paladin setup, and that was a really fun way for me to approach the game. Now, also touching on class design, I think the way that Ashes does classes or archetypes, I think is what they call them, is again, it's more that classic approach that some gamers are going to really like, where your class does matter. For example, not every class can heal, so you're going to need some clerics. But not every class can tank mobs, certainly, so you're definitely going to need tanks in this game. More recent games have taken literally the opposite approach to this, where any class can do anything, and that can definitely run into some problems, I think, when you're looking at class identity as a whole. But again, Ashes of Creation is taking the opposite approach to that, where your class roles are very specific. Now, I know the developers for Ashes are going to continue to expand on that, and class identity and the class design is important, because it's nice to feel like you have a determined role or a determined path in the game. I mean, yes, you can differentiate slightly, in different directions, like how I changed my cleric into more of a paladin style build for solo play. But for the most part, if you pick a class, you're going to know what you're getting into, and that's an important choice when the game's character progression has such a long arc like it does in Ashes of Creation. But if you're curious now about how you can get involved with Ashes, if this classic MMO style approach sounds good to you, there's a few things I do want to mention just briefly to be, completely clear and transparent about what this game is and what it is not. Now, the most obvious thing here is that Ashes of Creation is still in early alpha testing. You need to keep that in mind right now if you're interested in picking up this game at all, because it's actually not a full game. In fact, there are currently huge sections of the game missing, including zones, classes, mechanics, and there's also lots and lots of bugs. You may die to bugs, you may lose your gear or your character to bugs, and your character is also going to be wiped at several points between now and the full release of the game as we go through these different alpha and beta testing cycles. I think, as I said previously, with Ashes of Creation right now, you're basically paying to be a game tester, so just keep that in mind. It also still costs well over $100 to join the alpha currently, so obviously this is not an option for everyone. But with that price, you really need to understand that this is more than just looking for entertainment or for a game, right? With that price point and with this early of a potential access, you need to be ready to join the community, and especially to give feedback and ideas, because that's what the developers are looking for right now. They're looking for feedback, they're looking for ideas, and they're looking for the community to get involved and help shape the formation of this game into its final design, which is actually a pretty unique opportunity. From what I've seen, this development team it's small, but they are very active, right? They're on Discord, they're on Reddit responding to players, and in many cases implementing those player ideas and also updating the game on a weekly basis with those ideas, which is pretty amazing to watch and be a part of. So, for me, experiencing the game these past few weeks, also seeing how responsive the development team is and how they're actually implementing feedback nearly immediately, I'm starting to get it. I get now that Ashes of Creation is all in. Now, we may not get a full release for another 3 to 4 years, but I'm okay with that. As it is, we still have hundreds of potential hours between now and then that we can play the game during alpha and beta testing. There's enough here that I'm logging in every weekend and I'm playing, even though it's an alpha test. For me, it's been enjoyable. And like I said, the game is only getting better and better each week as the team is very dedicated to updates. But anyways, that's my thoughts with Ashes of Creation right now after playing for the first month or so. If you're looking forward to this game or not, let me know in the comments section. I would be very curious what you all think about this game, or if you're already playing right now, let me know as well what you think of the current progression of the current classes. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.